Okay, so let's look at number 8. This one is also one where you're being asked to solve each equation using all 3 methods and proving that all 3 provide the same solution. So let's start with the quadratic formula. So we have it right here. So we need to label our A, our B, and our C. So just to be consistent, instead of X, I'm going to put P so that it's the same on all of them. P equals negative, and then in parentheses, negative 8 plus or minus square root, and then negative 8 goes in parentheses instead of the B, squared minus 4, and then instead of the A, I put the 1 in parentheses, and instead of the C, I'm going to put the 15 in parentheses. Okay? And then this is all over 2, and then A is 1. Once I have everything plugged in to the quadratic formula, I need to simplify the pieces. So I've got this piece right here, this piece right here, this one right here, and this one right here. Those are the pieces that I'm simplifying. So I've got P equals, the opposite of negative 8 is positive 8. Negative 8 squared, you need to make sure you use the parentheses, okay? If you don't use the parentheses, you're going to get the wrong answer. It is 64. Because remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. If you just do that, then it's only scoring the 8 and it's not scoring the negative, and you're going to end up with a negative 64. This is not right. It's the positive 64 that's right. This is why it's so important that you use parentheses. And then the minus I'm just writing down, and then I'm doing 4 times 15 times 1, or 4 times 1 times 15, and I'm going to get 60. And then 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? So then I want to simplify any pieces that I can again, and here's a piece right there that I can simplify. Every other piece, I'm going to write it over here just so I have more room than I did last time. So P equals 8 plus or minus square root of 64 minus 60 is 4. All over 2. Okay. And now what is the square root of 4? It is 2. So I'm going to say that P equals 8 plus or minus 2 all over 2. But then this does not have a square root in it anymore, so I can keep going. So I have 2 choices here. I have P equals 8 plus 2 over 2, and I also have P equals 8 minus 2 over 2. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay, 8 minus 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, so put a line there, and then I'm going to solve it using the factoring. Now keep in mind, because these went all the way down to a full answer like this, like a integer answer, like this, you can factor it. If you would have gotten, well, I actually did on different paper. If you would have gotten one that had a square root in it, such as on the front, number 1 here, you wouldn't have been able to factor this one. Okay, if you tried to factor, it wouldn't work. Same thing with this one here. You tried to factor that one, it wouldn't have worked. Same thing with number 6 here. If you would have tried to factor that one, it wouldn't have worked, okay? So factoring will not work if you have an irrational answer. You have to have a rational answer for it to work, okay? So let's go ahead and factor it. Let's multiply A times C, so 1 times 15 is 15, okay? And then we're going to find our factors of 15 that add up to negative 8. So remember, 15 is probably an easy one, but just to keep practicing using it in the calculator, just in case you get one that is difficult. But we're wanting it to add up to negative 8, so we know it's going to be 2 negatives because it's going to add up to a negative number, but it's going to multiply to a positive number. So it's going to be 2 negatives. So we have negative 1 and negative 15. Well, that adds up to negative 16, so that's not what I want. I've got a decimal, I don't want that. I've got negative 3 and negative 5, and that adds up to negative 8, so that's what I want. Those are the factors that I want here. So I've got p plus negative, which is the same thing as just minus 3, and then p plus negative 5, but that's not the same thing as p minus 5. Okay? And then we need to divide by a. In this case, a is 1, so that makes this step optional. Okay? If it's dividing by 1, you don't have to do it. But I always do it just so we don't forget it on the other times. But if you want to leave it off because you know it's optional, that's fine. Which I just went ahead and simplified. Negative 3 divided by 1 is negative 3. Negative 5 divided by 1 is negative 5. Okay? So I just simplified that. We don't need a bottoms up because there's not any fractions left. So then we're going to go straight to solving it. And we know it's being multiplied and equaling 0. So that means that one of the pieces have to equal 0. So we're going to say p minus 3 equals 0. And p minus 5 equals 0. We're going to solve these, and we get 3. And we get 5. So that is the same as this. So we're good to go there. So finally, we want to solve it by completing the square to ensure that, that all three methods work. Okay. So here we have this same quadratic again, and we want to complete the square. Now remember, when we're completing the square, the place where we're putting our square is right here, so we have to get that spot open. So we're going to minus 15 to both sides, and what that does is that leaves that spot right there open. So we just have, I'm just going to put p squared instead of 1p squared, minus 8p. This is a blank spot, or 0, but if I add 0, it's nothing, so it's just a blank spot, minus 15. And we leave that blank spot there because that's where we're going to put our square. And you have to remember, to do a square, it is, well, it's right here, b divided by 2 squared. And so here it is negative 8 divided by 2 equals negative 4. Make sure you put in parentheses to square it, equals 16. Okay? So we are going to be adding 16 to both sides. All right? So then you just need to go ahead and simplify what you can here, which you can simplify this part right here. Everything else comes straight down. And then negative 15 plus 16 is 1. And then you need to factor it. So 1 times 16 is 16. What are my factors of 16 that add up to negative 8? Well, that's negative 4 and negative 4. But this is optional because you can also see that it's right here. It's always going to be right there. It's that number. So it's p minus 4. P minus 4 equals 1. Once again, this is an optional step here. You could have went straight to p minus 4. Squared equals 1 because whenever you multiply something times itself, you're squaring it. Okay. And then I need to solve this. And, oh, wait a minute. In order to solve this, you're going to have to square root both sides because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So this square root here is going to cross off, but this one's right here, we're going to have to simplify that, and so that's going to make us a plus or minus. Whenever we have a square root, you're going to have a plus or minus involved. Okay? So then here, what's left over here is p minus 4. And then what's left over here, you have plus or minus. And what is the square root of 1? Well, the square root of 1 is 1. So you just have plus or minus 1. Okay. Now we need to add 4 to both sides. And that gets us p equals 4 plus or minus 1. Okay. We do not have a square root here. So we're going to go ahead and break these apart and actually come up with our integer answers here. So we have p equals 4 plus 1, and we have p equals 4 minus 1. So that's p equals 5, and p equals 3. And once again, those are the same answers we got before, so we've just verified that all three methods work.